Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Ron Levin. He's a socially conscious venture capitalist, he's an entrepreneur, and it's going to be he's got a popular Substack, the Higher Purpose Venture Capital blog, and he's currently a managing partner with Alumni Ventures, one of the most active VC firms in the US. He's got so much experience in angel investing, advisor, startups, and glad to have him on the show. So, Ron, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, start off by introducing yourself, what you do, and we're gonna dive right into the segment ideas.
Sounds great. Currently managing partner here at Alumni Ventures, which is actually the most active venture capital firm in the United States, a couple of years running now. We're extremely active as co-investors alongside leading venture capital firms, building well-diversified portfolios for our investors. We are democratizing venture capital, so we make VC an accessible asset class to any individual accredited investor. You don't have to be a pension fund or an endowment coming in with $25 million to invest with us. We start closer to $25,000, so much more accessible for those looking to diversify their portfolios into venture capital. And over here, I specifically lead our seed fund. Having previously been a founder and raised venture capital myself, I made the transition about 5 years ago into the investing side, but had a startup over in Barcelona, where I previously lived, called TravelPerk in the enterprise travel space. That's gone on to become a very successful company. And I now focus on sort of sector agnostic, but seed-focused investing, and also have a very strong interest in impact and double bottom line investing, which is why I write my blog, and also published a book in September called Higher Purpose Venture Capital, to talk about really venture capital backed companies that are solving major societal problems, primarily related to social and wealth inequality. So those are a few of the things that keep me busy these days.
Yeah, and I love this. We'll put the links in the show notes to the to Ron's book, Higher Purpose Venture Capital. One thing that is really has been on my mind recently, especially on Twitter, is this idea of part of the symptoms is you see the wealth gap, and you see, like, for example, the US is trying to inhibit fair free market competition, for example, trying to shut down TikTok. And so what is this you have this idea, the big idea, Rage Against Capitalism is having a moment, and talk about why Americans believe capitalism isn't working, and US's role in that.
Sure. I am a capitalist. I mean, it's in my job title. I'm literally a venture capitalist. Every once in a while, I get accused of being a communist or worse because I talk about, social and wealth inequality. But that couldn't be further from the truth. What my main belief is, I think capitalism should be a tool for helping to correct some of the problems that it's created. So I do believe that capitalism has also been one of the root causes of why there is so much inequality. But I also believe that it can be a solution. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, there are people who have lost faith, or maybe never had much faith in the invisible hands of the market. And that's because of the power that companies have, and they build as they get bigger and bigger. And larger enterprises can stifle competition and worse. And government doesn't always play a role in kind of preventing that. They often come late to the party, and sometimes they overreact and react in irrational ways to try and solve issues with kind of a band-aid solution to a much bigger problem. So I try not to get too much into what government can or cannot or should not be doing, and really try to focus on the private sector and enterprise, and how enterprise can be a tool for solving some of these big social gaps.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, with so much regulation, I mean, especially I'm big in the digital asset space, and there's startup founders, entrepreneurs, they just want to build and create, and kind of um fix the problems of these legacy institutions, and these legacy, things from the industrial age. And it feels like the government is always there around the corner trying to smash out these things, and just trying to the more I think about it, it's like your job is to, seek out the best ideas, but then you're having to deal with, regulators and laws and, politics. So,
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I mean, just to kind of pick up on that, particularly for very disruptive entrepreneurs, and I can give you a great example that I have in my book, which is a fintech company based in LA called Solo Funds, which is disrupting the market of payday lending. So trying to make it a lot easier for people to get cash when they need it. So talking about more, lower income individuals who might have an unexpected auto repair or may need a little extra cash to put food on the table this month or make ends meet, what have you. So a simplified kind of marketplace platform to let the free market of lenders provide loans that are not usurious, but are kind of fair loans that are small dollars and short term, and they're providing a brand new solution. But anything to do with money, regulators immediately get involved, and one state in particular kind of came in and tried to shut them down, and because the banks get all in a huff when their business gets disrupted. Socially minded entrepreneurs sometimes have to take these hits and be very resilient when they're really orchestrating major change, because I think at the end of the rainbow is something that's going to look a lot better. But governments and others have to be open to realizing that existing way of doing things is causing problems that entrepreneurs sometimes need to come in and solve.
Yeah. The other question I have is, especially with the most recent SBF, I'm sure you're aware of this once this guy, but basically, stole people's money and just bribed politicians. But he was talking about effective altruism, and there was a really good podcast on the Bankless podcast talking about effective altruism. What is it? The role of venture capitalism. So, well, what is your views on venture capital and effective altruism?
Yeah. Well, I think we as venture capitalists have a lot of power. I mean, not everyone can say that they have millions of dollars that they can deploy into companies, and we have the power to really help create big companies. I mean, we're not the ones who are in the trenches necessarily, doing the building, but by the power of the purse, we're able to enable companies to grow and hire and expand markets. And so with that power comes, I think, responsibility to what kind of problems do you want to solve? And my whole philosophy is, we as investors should be open to solving big problems, and sometimes that involves solving problems that who, as a general rule, most venture capitalists come from a more privileged class in terms of wealth and education and upbringing and so forth. But the vast majority of the planet does not necessarily come from that, and there are big problems that relate to poverty and how people continue in that sort of spiral of not being able to find upward mobility. And but there are solutions, and there are a lot of technology driven solutions and clever entrepreneurs trying to solve that. So we as venture capitalists, I think, should be part of that, because the return on investment from a financial perspective is there. Like there's opportunities for significant financial returns as well as social returns. So it's just to think about, do you really want to solve big problems, or are you going after kind of small niches and things that might have a market demand but aren't really solving a big problem? So I just hope that I can help encourage investors to think about, really solving problems that can become a legacy for them.
And talking about some of the biggest societal problems, what are some of those that can be solved by entrepreneurs? And is social impact compatible with return on investment?
Sure. So my book actually profiles 50 examples across many different industries, from education to fintech to health and wellness to housing, food security, disability technology, charitable giving, a lot of areas. So, one example that I like to cite is an education technology company that I write about called All Here, started by a former Boston inner city public school teacher who really saw the problem that was created by student absenteeism. And she created an AI chatbot, and this was like way before AI was coming out of everyone's mouth. And basically brought this to schools to use with parents and families to communicate and say, hey, we noticed your child is not in school today. Can we help? Is there anything wrong? And if a parent writes back and say, oh, well, my car broke down, I had no way of getting my child to school, they might be able to respond, well, actually, we have a way of helping with that. We can actually send somebody maybe to, pick up your child. And, and so this company is not only serving a public good, because it really is improving student absenteeism rates, but the company's ARR and financial metrics are all like off the charts. And this is a tremendous company that's going to be very successful by any measure, regardless of the social return. So really excited. That's just one of many examples, but it's one that I really love to share.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I think the Peter Diamandis, he said, if you want to become a billionaire, you want to solve problems that impact a billion people. And then, so I think the biggest impact are in education, with Khan Academy, KIP, and you mentioned, the other, and then, healthcare, especially healthcare is also ossifying. It's a dying industry. So really needs a revamp. Transportation, energy, infrastructure, financial, these are all very big problems, but we're, still, going and fighting wars. So the other thing is talking about ethical considerations in venture capital. And VCs are often critiqued for prioritizing profits. And so how do you ensure that ethical considerations take precedence in your investment decisions? What advice would you give to new investors?
Yeah. So I've always maintained the philosophy of, could I be able to defend this on the front page of the Wall Street Journal if some investigative reporter were to uncover the work that I've done and companies I've invested in? Could I justify it, both as a financial investment and keep a high enough ethical standard? So, I think everyone's standard's a little bit different, whether, their investors would invest in fossil fuels or weapons or, I don't know what, pick your, whatever vice or, but, I kind of say that I think most people do have a line somewhere. I mean, for me, like I could never see myself investing in something that encourages tobacco use, which is, verifiably proven to be bad for like everybody. I mean, maybe not the people who work in the industry, fair enough, but other than that. So, I have my line. I think other people have their line. I think it's just important for everyone to kind of define for them, where they won't go in terms of their investing, just to kind of make sure that their morals are firmly set. And then, but also on the other side, to think about what do they want to encourage? I mean, I think, is there anyone who wouldn't say that improving education is a good idea or improving longevity, health? I think we all want to live longer, healthier lives. Is there not something to that? So, I just think it's important for investors to consider where their boundaries are. And I mean, you can have a debate of everyone's going to be a little different, but we should all at least kind of know in our own minds, what we think is worth investing in and also what we think is definitely not worth investing in.
Yeah. Kind of rounding it out because we have a couple more minutes and really advice for entrepreneurs, the people that are listening to this. They're looking to attract investment from firms such as yours. What qualities, elements do you look for in startup beyond traditional metrics? And how can entrepreneurs make their ventures more appealing to socially conscious investors such as yourself?
Absolutely. So, I tend to invest very early. So some of the companies I look at don't even really have metrics yet. But we're always looking for a great founder market fit. I want to know why this founder or founding team is the right team to execute an idea. Do they have experience with startups? Do they have deep knowledge of a particular industry that no one else is solving? Therefore, they decide to go after it. I like to see big opportunities, as most VCs do. So moonshots, which doesn't necessarily mean like literally like space technology and deep tech, but just big ideas. Like, if this goes well, can this be $1 billion business? So we like to see that. Our model is to look at who else is investing in the round. Has this been validated by other savvy investors? But keep networking. This is a network-driven business. Raising venture capital or angel funding or any kind of funding is really about personal relationships. Keep networking. One conversation can lead to another. Don't burn bridges. If someone tells you no, always have an ask for an investor that you meet with. If they seem encouraging, say, hey, even if this isn't the right investment for you, do you know somebody else who I should be talking to? And just keep that networking going, because it's all about communications and building relationships.
I love that. Um, And rounding it out, your vision for the future, you've seen a lot of changes in VC landscape, macroeconomics, and based on your experiences, observations, what do you think about the future of socially conscious investing, and how do you think the relationship between VC and social entrepreneurship will evolve in the future?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the only way forward. I mean, there's so much transparency these days with social media and everything else that everyone and everything is like kind of under a microscope. And I think in many ways that's a good thing, so that people can show, and be transparent, and that you don't get kind of the SBFs of the world that are kind of burying things and we don't really know what's going on. Like I think the world needs a good measure of transparency. It's been a strange market the last couple of years. Venture capital, startup fundraising has been down. On the other hand, the public markets have kind of been hovering around new highs. And that's a bit of a kind of a weird dichotomy. And I think that means that there's a lot of value right now to be captured in the private and venture investing space.
Uh,
So as a value investor, I think it's actually a great time to be getting into alternative assets like VC and angel investing in early stage startups. But yeah, absolutely keep that lens on of social good. Think about what you think is going to solve a big problem, even if it's not a problem that you personally face, but a problem that, as I guess that Peter Diamandis, who you mentioned, mentioned, a problem that's faced by the vast majority, or not necessarily majority, but by vast swaths of society. Those are the kinds of big problems that we should be looking at, because there are technology and innovation solutions out there, and great entrepreneurs who are trying to solve them.
Yeah. And lastly, kind of another final question is, this year is a very pivotal election year, and a lot of startups and entrepreneurs are going elsewhere to, Singapore and Dubai and elsewhere where there's more, in the Silicon Valley, and that was where the entrepreneurship was. What are your thoughts on the US keeping innovation? Are we losing ground? And how do we solve this problem?
Yeah. I think in some ways the US is still, ahead in terms of the number of startups we produce and the ecosystem. And we've got a culture that encourages innovation and risk taking. I lived in Europe for many years, and sort of across different European borders, there are very different attitudes toward that. Some are more encouraging, some are a little more conservative. You got to take a job with a big company for a secure paycheck, and don't think about starting a company. And they put a lot of bureaucratic layers around that, including taxation and lots of legal requirements. So I think the U.S. is doing okay. I mean, I don't think there's like a mass exodus coming. But yeah, other countries are out innovating us. They saw us, how the capitalist model has worked well in the U.S. historically, and are now ahead of us. The countries like Singapore and others, and Korea, and many other countries that are also doing a tremendous job of encouraging entrepreneurship. So we have to stay competitive. We have to keep a pulse on what people are doing, and we have to, I think, we need to keep tax rates reasonable, and just generally make it easy for entrepreneurs, and not place too much burden, because it's the entrepreneurs who are going to change the world in a positive way, I hope. And we need to not be putting up, undue barriers to that as other countries begin to outcompete us.
Especially Biden's recent capital gains of 44%. Everybody, that was like a big storm on Twitter. But how can people contact you and follow you, reach out to you, and schedule a call and work with you?
Absolutely. So my venture capital firm, Alumni Ventures, is at av.vc. So very easy URL to remember. We've got a lot of content. We're publishing we do webinars, we publish blogs. Our firm is very big on generating content about startups and venture and technology. My book, if you're interested in learning more about my book, higherpurposevc.com. It's available on Amazon and other places. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed this conversation. It's really great to have such a big figure in the VC space come on, and be sure to follow Ron's resources, which will be in the links and show notes. Give his socials a like and follow. Check out his book, and thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This was